Father Manuel Williams, CR, and I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. How did I know I was called to be a priest? I think that process began very early in my childhood. I was enrolled in a Catholic school, a brand new school that had been built in my parents' neighborhood, and the facilities were magnificent. We had 10 or 11 religious women who staffed every classroom, and my mother was a teacher, and took one look at the facilities and at the staff and said, "You're going to school there." I identified very much with what I saw as the ministry of the sisters and priests in that school community and in the broader parish community. It was a predominantly African-American community. All of the priests and religious were non-African-American, and they came south specifically to work to uplift, to educate members of my community. And so there was a natural attraction to the fact that they decided to work outside of their culture, outside of their geography, to be in the South, to be working with us. Later on, through some relationships with priests and religious women who were my teachers in high school, some of them started to ask the pointed question, have you ever considered ministry? Have you ever considered priesthood? And in the course of thinking about that question, realized that there was a call. When I entered the seminary, I went with the surety that I was supposed to look. I was supposed to come and see. And I was prepared to stay, but I would not say I was sure. When I got there, I think I kind of, in one sense, fell in love with a new phase of the academic life. I had done my undergraduate work at the University of Notre Dame, and our initial formation program was at St. Louis University. And so I got back in an academic environment, and the fellowship in the house, the fraternity of the men who were considering religious life, became very important to me, and I saw myself being able to live in that kind of lifestyle. And so the sense of surety grew as I not only lived in community, but also began to try my wings ministerially in terms of some of the programs that we were involved in.
So tell us a little bit about
I think my youth, I think I was a typical oldest child born. And so all the prerequisites in terms of family systems that you sometimes find in eldest children. I was very responsible. I had a nickname amongst my peers in grade school and high school of preacher. And so in one sense, I think they saw perhaps some predilections in my personality and the way that I deported myself that might indicate my future vocation. But I enjoyed my childhood. I was very active in the neighborhood, very active in our school and in our parish. And so not as mischievous as my siblings who came after me. I think the basic vocation for every believer, what is that basic vocation? Do you have to be holy to be a priest? I think we all have to be holy to be Christians. And so the discernment process for us is how are we going to express that call to holiness? Will it be as religious, as clergy? Will it be as laymen and women in various ministries of the church, various professions that exist in society and in the culture? The fundamental call for everybody is holiness. But certainly for those of us who have the privilege of being ministers of the sacrament, of being leaders, shepherds, if you will, of God's people, there is a unique type and call of holiness that I think we're called to.
What aspects of the priesthood do you?
What aspects of my priesthood do I find most rewarding and liberating? I find some of the most powerful moments are in the liturgy is the preaching moment. Because I think, particularly in the part of the country where I minister and live, the importance of that word, preached powerfully and prophetically and with integrity and scholarship and with applications to people's lives, can have the most impact on people. You couple that with the Eucharist following immediately afterwards, and that's the summit of my week. Because of the particular ministry that I do, I also do administration and fundraising, and we have schools and we have outreach service programs. And so part of the joy of my priesthood is the variety, indeed, that I'm expected to have some expertise in, that I have the privilege of entering in people's lives in through those various venues and vehicles. And so I sometimes say, when people ask me real pointed questions about priesthood, we're the last great generalist. And so for me, that has been an attractive part of the priesthood.
Okay. And finally,
My first advice to young men considering the priesthood would be, do not be afraid. And that's particularly at my mind at this point in the Easter season, when we're hearing the risen Christ say throughout the readings of these Sundays of Easter, as he greets the apostles, do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. I think that I'm convinced that God is still calling people. I think there are so many factors that mitigate against young men answering that call. And fear and peer pressure and societal expectations are some of those factors. But if they will just take the risk, do not be afraid, they will be surprised by joy, I hope.